Now, I don't know about you, but I am extraordinarily excited for what we are about to do here because we are going to be bringing on, are you ready for this? We're going to be bringing on our new resident vet, and he is here with us right now. Good morning to you, Chris. How are you doing?
Very well, Gareth, and how are you?
I'm very well. Now, a lot of people already getting in touch and asking questions. What I did say is that we're going to leave the questions till next week, and we're going to get stuck in with, I suppose you could call it the heart of the feature. But what we're talking about today is just you, because we want to know all about you. You've had a really interesting life, and we've got a few general questions that we've been wanting to ask a vet for ages. So first of all, it's a bit like a really budget version of This Is Your Life, I'll be honest. Chris Tomlinson, when did you become a vet and why did you become a vet?
I became a vet in 1980, and the reason I became a vet is I love working with animals and I love working with people, and the combination is just stunning. Part of my dream was to go and work in Africa and to improve food security for people and bring a practical gift to them. And I did that for 5 years. But it was just this sense that animals are so important to us, and really to enjoy the relationship with them and with people as well. It's absolutely amazing. Still love it till today.
Well, I was about to say, because you clearly do love it, because you've been doing it for quite a long time, this, haven't you?
That's it. Well, I qualified in 1980. And I retired from my present practice in end of April, but I'm setting up another practice because I love it too much. And I'd reached the age where I had to come off the board. I was 65, but I didn't feel I was ready to give up. So on we go again.
And I suppose with you, it's like medicine in general, isn't it? That you can't put all the experience that you've got. You can't really teach it. I mean, you can, of course, learn the basics, which you have to do to become a professional vet. But the thing is that you can't really sort of just pass on all the 40 odd years of experience that you've got.
No, it's really, you know, when we get new vets straight out of college, it takes a while to enable them to find their rhythm, because it's almost like it's a vacation, and you have to be able to put yourself into the work and to enable people to feel comfortable that they can bring themselves, not just the knowledge, but their personalities and their intuition, so they really are engaging with the pet and with the people behind the pet.
Now, the question, and you probably heard me asking this actually before we brought you on. Let's go back 40 odd years ago, okay, when you first thought, right, I want to be a vet, and you started your initial training. The thing is that when you look at the human body, whether or not you're big, you're small, it doesn't matter what color you are, it's the same body, but that's different with animals. So how do you learn all the different animals and what they do and where the parts are?
So, Gareth, what we start off with is the dog. The dog is a good standard to start with. It used to be the horse, but as the small animal work has increased phenomenally, it's moved over onto the dog. And we spent 2 years dissecting a dog, taking it apart and working out where everything was, and then going across to looking at the cat and the horse and the cow and the sheep. But the basic way the body works for a mammal is that you have a heart, you have lungs, you have a stomach, you have intestines, you have eyes, you have limbs. So it all, you know, fits together. And once you understand how the dog works, it's easier then to go and understand how other animals work.
But surely there must be so much difference between, say, a snake and a dog. Now, I was thinking that, well, maybe you use the dog or you used to use the horse because it's sort of, I guess it's a template of where everything would be. But then I started thinking, well, take a snake, for example. I wouldn't even know where a snake's heart is. Is it near the head? Is it near the bottom? Where is it?
Well, it's sort of halfway down, really. It's about third way down, and then two thirds way down is where the anus is. But I mean, the snake is a reptile, so it's slightly different to mammals. But there still is a lot of that is works from one species to another, even going into reptiles and amphibians.
So what is, and this is a question that's come in. I did say no questions, but this one, I would have asked it anyway. What's the strangest animal that you've ever had to, do you call it working? No, not working on, treat on, treat.
Well, yes, I would say when I was at university, at the Bristol University, many years ago, I dealt with a pygmy hippopotamus. And that was the most marvelous little animal. It was very small. It was a baby one. And when you put it into the water, it suddenly exuded all this mucus and it would swim around and then it would come out again. And that was a real pleasure to look after it. But, you are faced with, what we see more commonly, budgies and lovebirds. They, we don't see so often. So but that I think would be the most interesting one. Another one I saw sadly in Africa, which I couldn't really treat, but I had to engage with, was a giraffe, which sadly had broken its legs, and we had to call somebody out to put it to sleep because it was just, I think a truck had hit it, sadly.
And following on from that, so it must be a journey every day in your industry. It must be a journey of just emotions because you're taking care of somebody's prized possession. And sometimes you'll be able to treat them. And sometimes you'll sadly have to say, do you know, it's the best thing to actually put them to sleep. That can't get any easier, can it?
No, I would agree. You're dealing with little creatures who are so important to people. And even on farmers hate giving up on their animals. They have their special cows. But now I just do cats and dogs and the small animal side. But it is, at the end of the day, you feel quite tired because you're engaging with people. You're receiving their worries. You're enjoying the joy of having a new puppy or the new kitten and to celebrate that. You have an animal which they're really worried. They think it may not make it, and we bring it back and send it home. And it's really a roller coaster during the day. And it's embracing life. That's real life. Things don't always go right, and we have to be able to cope with that. And what people want often from their vet is somebody who's going to go on the journey with them. So, they get the new puppy and that's all joyful and happy. And then something maybe goes wrong and you have to console them and help them while the puppy's sick. And then you get to the middle-aged dog who's a good, solid worker. And then you get to this golden time of the older dog or the older cat who is obviously not as active as he used to be, but we can help make their life still good. But then at a certain stage, sadly it's time to say goodbye, and people just want to feel that they've got somebody there who is going to be with them. They don't always want cures. Sometimes they just want somebody who says, we're here with you while you're going through this journey.
I'd like to know how your Christian faith has come into this, because you see the wonderful creation of the human beings because they bring the pets in, but you also see these incredible things that now I heard an interesting theory that there's some animals that are soul-like creatures and there's some that aren't. So for example, now correct me, I say correct me if I'm wrong. I'm probably wrong. I'll put that out there right now. But this theologian, he was saying that what you tend to get is different groups of animals. So they would put dogs in the sort of soul-like creatures where they have a soul. They feel things. They've got emotions. But then if you take something like, I'm picking it out of, if you take something like, say, a cockroach, there's no evidence to show that actually that has feelings, or at least, emotional feelings. Is that a correct theory, or is this fella just talking nonsense? Are there different groups of animals that you'd say, that they're sort of human-like and they can engage with humans, whereas other things can't?
Well, I think there is probably something in that, obviously, because, but also we don't always understand. The world is far more wonderful, and I think the whole of creation is fearfully and wonderfully made. And I do believe that dogs and cats are very intuitive and feel what others are thinking and will look after each other. We see that with elephants, how they look after each other. We see it with the way that cows will look after their calves and call them and nurture them. And horses are marvelous. You have these people who have had trauma in their lives, and then they'll go and work with horses, and they will bring hope and just a sense of purpose in their lives. So I'd be wary to say that smaller creatures don't have emotions, but we can't read them. But it doesn't mean that when I see a wasp, I just think it's a wonderful creature. I tend to get the fly swat out for that one. Rather than getting.
I was about to say, because even you, who's calling it is to take care of animals, you can't be telling me that you're there on a park bench and you go, oh, look at this lovely wasp flying around us, trying to really annoy us. Isn't he wonderful? I'll give him a little treat. Even you can't be like that, Chris.
No, not at all, Gareth. I had one that got in my beer on holiday last week, and I drank it, and it was something. Oh no, I got a wasp in the mouth. I had to spit it out quickly and run to the bar to get some vinegar to try and get the swelling down. Yeah. So it's. But I mean, I've got a lot of respect, for it's just everything being in its place. Really, we've got to look after creation. I think that's really important. We're seeing the problems we have at the moment, where we are thinking that we can just use the world as we want to. But actually, it's a very fine balance, and I'm aware that we have to nurture and love our locality, our creation. Yeah.
And the last question here, because we've got so much to get stuck into in the next few weeks. Honestly, Chris, I don't think we've ever had a guest like this where we've got the questions lined up. We've had so many people sharing the tweets because we do love our animals, and the fact that we've got a seasoned professional on here who can answer our questions. A few people saying, and I'm not sure how I feel about this, saying, I was going to take our Charlie to the vet, but that'll cost a fortune, so I'll just text in here instead. I'm not sure about that. I mean, I'm sure Chris's advice would be that if you need to see a professional in person, then you need to go and do it rather than just texting in a radio show. But what I want to ask you is a vet, or are there different types of vets? So, for example, if you were called up by Chester Zoo to say, we've got here a lion that's not sleeping very well. Does a lion sleep well anyway? I don't know. But we've got something like, an elephant, like you said, that needs treating. Would you be able to go over there? Or are there special zoo vets? Are there safari vets? Is there different groups?
So what it is, Gareth, is you get your basic training, 5 years training, and then it's up to you which direction you go. I've stayed as a general practitioner, really. I did quite a lot of work on farms initially, and then going out to Africa, obviously dealing with cattle and goats and sheep out there. And then I came back and dealt with horses and cows, and that became my speciality for a while. And then I've realized, for the benefit of the practice, we needed somebody to lead the small animals. So I did a transition across. But there are some really good vets who specialize. So you have ones who specialize in doing orthopedic operations. You'll have others that will specialize in looking after eyes. You'll have others that will specialize in looking after zoo vets, zoo animals. So you do get specialities. Now we have, increasingly specialization, those who look after horses or those who look after farm animals. And that is the way the business is going.
And, well, there's many differences between a medical doctor and a vet, but can you answer this one for us? So, rumour has it that a medical doctor cannot sort of treat animals or prescribe to animals. Would you ever prescribe? I guess you would, really.
You do,
but a vet can prescribe to both animals and human beings. Is that the case?
Well, not these days. I think in the past it was, but you'd be on thin ice if you started handing out medicines to people these days. I think there's an organisation that's after the veterinary medicines who wouldn't take it very kindly to see vets prescribing stuff. And if something went wrong, you would be in a very difficult place.
I did say that was the last question. One more just before you go. And this has come in from Paul. And again, I mean, I'm being rather selfish here because I'm only asking the questions that I would have asked anyway, and I want to know the answers to. But Paul says, I've always been intrigued because doctors, unless you're a surgeon, you can't actually put somebody under. You can't actually operate on them, whereas vets can. So could you please ask Chris for me? Can you ask him that, can he just basically, if an animal needs an operation, he can get all the team together and he can operate on that animal? And are there other members of the team who would, for example, put the animal under and measure the blood pressure and the heart rate? Anaesthetist, I guess, or does Chris just do that all himself?
These days, in the past, you might well have done. When I was in Africa, we used to do that, but now we have qualified veterinary nurses who will generally be the anaesthetist. Occasionally, you'll have a vet if it's a very difficult case, and you have the whole team work. So it's not just me doing the operation. There'd be a whole team, particularly in the difficult operations. You'd have maybe 2 or 3 nurses, maybe 2 vets scrubbed in, particularly on orthopedic operations. They can often have 2 vets doing that with a nurse watching the anaesthetic and another helping to get all the stuff that's needed. So it's become much more of a team, much more like you would see in human medicine these days.
And is the medication that sends an animal under the same that sends a human being under?
Yes. We've used a lot of the drugs that have come over from human medicine and works really well. So I was really interested. A couple of years ago, I had an accident, I had to have a general anaesthetic, and it was just the same drug they were using on me that I'd used on a dog.
It must have been slightly concerning because there you are on a hospital bed and he goes, oh yeah, I use that to put a little squirrel under when I need to operate on it. So again, there's so many questions here. I promise you, this is the last one, and then we will let you go. But this is leading to my next one. So when you go in to have an operation as a human being, the anaesthetist, I guess, weighs you, they measure you, and they make sure that you're getting the right stuff to put you under. Is that what you do with an animal? So, for example, you would weigh the dog, and you'd know that it needs this much of the stuff to make it go to sleep. That's a technical term, by the way. And the same with a hamster. How does that work?
Yeah. Well, with hamsters, we would tend to use a gaseous anaesthetic so that they breathe it in. And once they feel they've got to sleep and they're relaxed, then we could do something with them. But with dogs and cats, we'd use injections because we can get into their veins. And that we would weigh them before we would give them the induction agent. And then we would put them onto gaseous anesthesia so we can then increase or reduce it as we need to.
I'm sure I speak for the whole nation when I say, Chris, thank you so much for your time because you're such a busy man and you're opening up a new practice in January because retirement, you just couldn't retire and relax, could you? You had to be back on the battlefield treating our animals. So we know you're very busy. Thank you. And we're looking forward to the next few weeks because we're going to have a ball. We've got so many questions. Thank you very much, Chris. Take care. And if you have got any questions for next week, I just want to put this out there that Chris cannot be expected to diagnose your animal from a text message that you send in. So please don't be saying, well, my dog has got a limp. What's the matter with it? Because that wouldn't be fair on Chris. He would have to actually see the animal to give a true professional diagnosis. But in general terms, if you've got any questions, that's what we'll be doing each and every Thursday from 8 a.m.